In one of my fairly recent videos, you would have seen me building this hump and tail section out of this split mold here. That's the actual piece that came out of it, and on the outside, yeah, it looks pretty good. This little line that runs down the center here obviously needs sanding down because it's a bit raised. Around the edge needs tidying up. But I finished that video off purely because I needed to come back to this and do some more work to it. What I did was I took the actual mold off the original piece. It's actually sitting up there. That's the original piece that I had pretty much made for the bike, and I took this mold off that, so the tolerances were quite tight. And I thought this might happen, but I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go anyway. And I didn't want it to be too loose. That's one thing that, you know, obviously if that thing's going to be flopping around in there, I'd have to, you know, secure it. But what I've done is I've made it too damn tight and the thing won't fit. Just so you can see what I mean, there's just absolutely no way that is going on. You probably can't see from that angle. It basically just goes over the frame here, and the same on the other side, but where it doesn't fit is just up the front there. So this has 6 layers of glass. So when I laid the actual matting down, I put 6 layers on, making it as thick as I could. And you can see where I've actually sanded down the inside here to try and get it to fit. Even me taking just a little bit on each side, it still just does not go on. So now I'm left with a piece that I can't use, unfortunately. There's a few things that I could do to fix it to make it work. One of which is cut a line all the way down the center. Once that it's cut all the way through the center, you know, put the spacing in that I need, and then just lay glass back on the inside again, and then just the resin will just be here in the center, and you can pretty much fill that up. Once you sand it, paint it, you'll never know it's there. That's one option. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that aside because I've come up with a better idea. Rather than trying to fix that, I'm going to make a totally new one, but I'm going to modify this mold to take that piece. And I don't know if you can see where I'm going here, but what I've decided to do is I'm going to put a spacer in here. So what I'm going to use for a spacer is this stuff here. It's 4mm thick. I think that's going to be just enough to get away with what I need. It is called HDPE, high density polyethylene. I've mentioned it quite a few times on my channel. It's the same sort of material that you'd find on like a chopping board or your outside bin. It's just a really, really durable sort of material. I've got plenty of it, and that's why I'm going to use it. And the best part about it is the fiberglass just does not stick to it. In fact, hardly anything sticks to this stuff. It's so good. Just one other thing to mention is when I do this, I'm going to make sure I push that just in so I end up with an actual hill rather than a valley, because if I have a valley, like a gap all the way through, when the piece comes out, it means I'm just going to have to fill it up and then sand it all back. Where if I left it raised, if I push this in, it's going to leave a little bump there, which I can just sand back and it's done. So another video that's coming soon is this guy here. This is obviously the front fender or mudguard, depending on where you are in the world, what you call it. That is, you know, spot on the size that I want, the width and everything. So I've just got to work out placement and length, whether I shorten it or not, or leave it the way it is. But that's pretty much something that I've got to make all the brackets for. I'm going to do all that by hand, and obviously there's mounting holes here and here on each side, and obviously the mounting points are, there's one there and there's one on this side here, which is also the mounting point for the brake line, I believe. Also, this exhaust is not staying on the bike. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, it's just on there at the moment. It's not the original exhaust, it's just something that I picked up, but I'm making a full custom exhaust. In fact, I'm making a full custom stainless exhaust, and this one here, as you can see how close it is to the tire, I couldn't use it even if I wanted to, because it'll just obviously hit. This bike has been lowered with these forks, so I could possibly manipulate it enough so it would clear. I want something that's custom made that flows in line with the frame there, so it's going to come down and obviously come out on one side. So I bought all the parts, well, majority of the parts that I need for that. Obviously the collector, I've got some elbows or 90s, whatever you want to call them, and I've also got some tube. There's some stainless there. There's one of those and two of those. There's 2.5 inch and 1.5 inch. That's another video that hopefully you're looking forward to. I'm going to build all that by hand and show the entire process, pie cuts and everything. So although I did choose stainless, I am still going to wrap it from here to about here. It's just because I really like the look of the wrap. Not to hide any ugly welding, but well, yeah, maybe to hide some ugly welding, I don't know. It's more or less, I love that look. I could have just chose mild steel and, you know, pretty much just done the whole, you know, wrap with mild steel, painted it beforehand, obviously, but I just like the idea of working with stainless, so that's what I chose. It's not really that much more expensive, maybe a little bit more expensive, but that's just what I want to do, and it's not going to rust, it's going to last a lot longer, and the performance and everything of it is not really that big a concern to me. It's a 750, it's not going to be a race bike. You know, I'm not going to treat it like a race bike. But the thing is, between this build and this build, it's kind of almost which one's going to finish first. It's almost a bit of a competition right now. I'm not spending any more time on one for any particular reason to try and get it finished first. It's just, it's happening this way. This one, obviously the motor isn't coming out of. Sorry, it will be coming out, obviously, because I've got to, you know, paint and powder coat everything or do whatever I've got to do within the budget. But I'm not going to be rebuilding that engine just purely because of the budget. This one here, I will be taking the engine apart. This one isn't on a budget. As you know, that Scrambler is a budget challenge. This one is not. So it has got a little bit of a knocking noise inside the engine. So the engine's got to come out and it's got to come apart. So yeah, it's a bit of a race to see which one's going to be finished. I would say if I have to pull this engine out and pull it apart, I would say the Scrambler's going to win, but it all depends on how much time I spend on each one. Which bike would you like to see first finished running? What I've done is off camera, I pretty much got that spacer perfect so that it just sits ever so slightly below where the actual mold sits. In some places, like just here, it sits almost flush, which I'm happy with, that's fine. So now I'll put 2 coats of wax on it. The first coat was just pretty much giving it a buff over, clean it all up, and then took it off after that went hazy. And now the second coat's on, and I'm going to let that go hazy and leave it there. What I'm going to do on this one, which I probably should have done to the other one, is put a layer of, or maybe even 2 layers of gel coat down first before I start laying the glass. The gel coat's white, it'll go on, and then it's just like paint, a really thick paint. So what will happen is once the gel coat's on, then the glass goes on. When I pull it away, you're going to have a nice white finish just like this on the top, so that'll be pretty cool. Like I said, I should have done that on the first one, but it doesn't, you don't necessarily need it because you're going to paint it anyway, so it's going to get covered in, I guess, some sort of body filler to get all the imperfections out and stuff. But it's nice to put on if you have it for a nicer finish, and I think I have some there, enough to do this anyway, so that's what I'll do. hump and tail section is pretty much ready for either upholstery or paint or whatever I decide to do with this one. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos, I'm going to do a few different variations of this, hence why I have an actual mold to make a few. One is going to be completely upholstered, actually right over here, and then may even have stitch lines down here. I'm not too sure. Another one is, I've mentioned, which will have a bit of a raised section, and then it will taper down to nothing, just to sort of mimic what's on the tank, as you can see there, just to sort of follow those lines through. That's something else that I want to play with. Obviously they're going to have like a glove compartment here, which I can access with a seat pan that can come on and off. There's a few different versions of this seat which I want to try and show you how to do each one. So it's not like I need a whole bunch of different seats for this bike, but just different things that I can show you on the process and how I actually do it. If you're still contemplating on having a go at doing a tail section and building the hump and everything, I've got a few videos that show the process of start to finish. So if you haven't checked those out, definitely go and have a look and see the process of actually doing one of these and making it yourself, because there's nothing better than having something that you've built from scratch and then stand back after you've taken it for a ride and pull up somewhere, and you're going to just be proud of the fact that you've actually made that. If you're interested in building the hump, cowl, the tail section, the complete unit, even a seat pan out of fiberglass, and you're unsure what products to use, like what actual products you need to buy to actually make this work, then what I've done is on my Amazon store, I've broken up it into two sections. I've got all the parts and the tools on one side and just the seat build on the other. So when you first arrive to the Amazon store, obviously you'll see Cafe Racer Garage, and I've broken it up into two sections, like I said, all the parts and the tools, and the seat hump, which I've got just here, which will have everything from the wax to the plasticine, which is really good for filling up areas that you don't necessarily want to put the fiberglass in. You've got the foam, which is really good for the actual, that's the high density foam, like the pink stuff that I have. This foam here is what you use to pretty much shape the hump or whatever the tail section is that you want. That stuff is really good. You can get florist foam, but it's really soft. This stuff's just a little bit harder and it's nice to work with. Obviously you've got your resins and your matting, your gel coats. So basically everything that you need is pretty much there to build the tail section exactly how I've done it, and I'll put it into that section just to make it easier rather than having to go through all the parts and products. With these links, any of these will support the channel if you purchase something. They're not going to cost you anything different than what they would if you purchase them from anywhere else on Amazon. With all of these products that I've listed, I've tried to spend a little bit of time finding the cheapest version of these, so to save you having to search for them. If there's something cheaper that you do want to purchase, then by all means go for it. I've tried to do my best to try and find the cheaper ones, but there's always new listings coming out. And if any of these listings, you click on them and they're not available, I try and update them as often as I can, because the sellers sometimes just delete them or they've run out. So if that happens, please let me know and then I'll update it straight away. So if you still want to support the channel but there's nothing that I actually sell on my Amazon store that interests you, Amazon does this kind of reward thing that if you click the link in the description, obviously to the Cafe Racer Garage Amazon store, and there's anything that you want to purchase that's completely unrelated to any of the things that I list, Amazon gives a slight kickback. I think it's like 3%, or it's a fairly small amount. But if you still want to support me and keep these videos going, help me buy parts to show you how to build things on these cafe racers and scramblers and stuff, all you got to do is click that link, go off and do your normal Amazon shopping, and I'll get a tiny little kickback from that. It won't cost you any different, but obviously Amazon rewards me for obviously promoting some of their stuff. So if you do use that link, a big thank you to you, and thank you for your support, because I really appreciate it. It makes a big difference.